Hey folks, Dennis here with Las Vegas Worm Farm and Live Its Own Community, and it's time for our worm topic of the week. This week, we're going to jump right into the secret to healthy soil. It's one of those things that I see a lot of people do wrong. A lot. Most gardeners spend a lot of time watering, fertilizing, and fighting weeds, but they forget to do one thing that nature always does, which is cover the soil. In forests and other places other than here in the desert, the soil is always covered. Mother Nature always seems to cover it, and there's never any bare spots. Nature protects itself, and that protection is called mulch. Many people think that it's just a decorative or something that you just throw on top of the garden to make it look nice. But mulch is way more than just something that's decorative. It's one of the most important tools you need to be able to protect your soil and continue to build a healthy soil system. Without this, your soil is exposed to extreme heat, water loss, erosion, compaction, dying microbes, UV rays, all of these things that we get exposed to that we don't really like as humans when we're standing outside getting exposed to it. Mulch works because it protects the soil ecosystem in four major ways. And we talk a lot about this in our Living Soil community on school. So go check that out if you haven't checked it out yet. But mulch helps, it holds in moisture, right? Because it provides a protective layer so the moisture can't evaporate out as quickly. It also prevents erosion, right? It holds everything in place. So the water has a place to kind of hit and then disperse instead of just washing everything away. It also helps, it also acts like an insulator, a blanket. In the summertime, it keeps things cool. In the wintertime, well, in the summertime, it keeps things cool, but kind of like, depending on what type of mulch you use, kind of like a swamp cooler. And then in the wintertime, it acts like a blanket where it keeps everything nice and cozy and warm, right? Keeps temperatures kind of from spiking or dropping too quickly. In addition to that, it's also a food source, or it can be a food source for certain microbes. All of these four things provide more stability to your soil. And all this stability to your soil also provides a soil that is way more productive. And a soil that's way more productive grows plants easier and grows things that you want a lot better. A common myth that I see about mulch is that it causes issues with pests and disease. Yes, it can, but in reality, if applied correctly or used correctly, it will not. Right. So some of the examples could be if you're piling up mulch on top next to the stem of a plant. Yes, it will be like a ladder to some pests to eat those plants. Right. Using synthetic materials that will block air and water. If you do that to the soil, right, all of a sudden those pests don't have anywhere else to go, and they could attack that plant. And then sometimes I've seen that if you apply too thick in certain areas, that mulch will actually become like a, what is it called? Like a home, right, for some of those pests, right, and things to kind of hide in. So you got to apply it correctly. And when you apply it correctly, you're actually supporting a healthy soil system that takes care of itself. And then plants will just grow all on their own. But you have to foster that in that ecosystem. If you don't foster that ecosystem, then yes, you will likely end up with pests and other things that you don't want. Now that we've got that covered, if you like this type of stuff and find it interesting, go ahead and give it a like or share, or even check out our community on school. Now, mulch. Why does your soil need it? Well, Mother Nature puts it there naturally in most places around the world, right? So if she's doing it, then we should probably mimic that system, especially if we're trying to grow naturally or organically. Us as humans, we try to do things, right? We try to do things better and faster, and sometimes Mother Nature knows best. So we have to mimic that system. And by mimicking that system, what do? Well, instead of breaking those leaves up, leave the leaves there. When pieces of wood and stuff, right, or limbs, or we chop things off because we're trimming our bushes and trees, instead of throwing things away, put them back. If you're cutting your grass, instead of picking all the clippings up, leave them there. Now there is a technique to this, right? You really want to chop this stuff kind of small. The smaller it is, the faster it breaks down, the more surface area there is for the microbes and stuff, right? But by doing that, you're adding a protective layer to the soil, but you're adding also a food source and fertilizing all at the same time. This is great, and this is what Mother Nature does naturally. So we need to try to mimic that system as much as possible. Now, some of the nerdy stuff behind it is not nerdy stuff, but some of the other things that this mulch can do, right, is we already talked about water evaporation, but how does that kind of work, right? Well, if we're using wood, wood has the capacity to be able to hold quite a bit of moisture, right? So if you're using wood chips will, lay on top, interlock kind of with space, but when the water tries to evaporate, it hits that and the wood chips will actually soak it up. And then there's food source for some microbes. The next thing is that if rain starts pounding down on, you know, or if it starts raining, not necessarily just pounding, but if it starts raining, raining hitting bare soil causes compaction. It's like tiny little hammers just going all over the place, packing everything in. And then if the soil is not, covered, then that water will actually wash away some of that stuff from the top of the soil. Mulch, what happens is it hits the mulch, and it's like kind of like the roof on your house, right? It hits the mulch and then it disperses and it protects everything on the inside. So mulch is kind of like a suit of armor, I guess you could say, or a roof for your home. Now, there's different types of mulches, right? Now, we have organic mulches and we have inorganic mulches. And what I want to say is that a mulch is the definition of a mulch is anything that covers the soil. So it could be organic, which we already kind of covered, which is leaves, grass, stems, sticks, wood chips, anything that else that grows. So if we're talking about plants, you can also use plants as a cover, right? If you grow plants dense enough, the leaves will catch the impact of the rain droplets and protect it from the sun. Those are all organic options to be able to put out there. Now you can also use straw or compost as well to protect the soil. Now some inorganic mulches would be things like the landscape fabric or the mylar, the aluminum foil stuff that goes out there, right? That would be some inorganic things. They still protect the soil. It's just not organic and not natural. Some of those could have detrimental effects. Remember, when we're using mulches, you have to use them correctly in order for them to be able to work the way you want them to. So, but mulch is a must if you're trying to grow naturally and organically with a living soil system. One of the big problems that we have, especially here in the desert, is that the temperatures during summertime get extremely hot, right? We had a couple of, we almost had a week worth of 120-degree temperatures one time a couple of years ago. And that was it was rough on us and the plants. So in order to protect, our plants as much as possible, we need to be able to protect the soil. And in order to do that, we have to put that mulch down there. And that mulch acts like an insulator during the wintertime, where it keeps all of the warm temperature from the earth, right? Because all of the earth pushes heat up through it, right? And then if we put a mulch layer on top, it kind of traps it in so that it can't escape just out into the atmosphere. So it keeps the soil a little warmer, and therefore it keeps your roots of the plants happy, and it keeps the microbes in there happy, and everybody's still cycling nutrients, so the plant can actually still. Usually in inclement weather like that, your plant's not really growing. It is trying to survive, but it gives it the nutrients to be able to survive. And the same thing in the summertime. We use I like to use a lot of wood chips, right? And the reason I like to use wood chips or straw is because when you put that on top and you add moisture to it, it kind of acts like a wicking, right? So when the wind comes across or it's blowing or anything like that, it kind of acts like a swamp cooler, where it keeps the surface of the soil, which is underneath that mulch, a lot cooler. So that is great to use in the summertime to help protect the soil. Again, most of the time when we have extreme temperatures like that, our plants aren't really growing or thriving in those types of environment. They're trying to survive, but by providing them with cover, the soil and their roots and the microbes, we give them access to all of the nutrients that they would need to continue to kind of make it through those difficult times. And then one of the other things that I've heard is a lot of people say that they struggle with weeds. If you struggle with weeds, it's probably because you don't have the right mulch down. If you had mulch down, then those weeds would actually be suppressed, and then the seeds can't germinate because the mulch layer is too thick. And all of a sudden, you are growing the plants that you want to grow, and the weeds are kind of held back. So the thing with the mulch, especially our organic mulch, is that it depletes, it goes away. So we have to keep applying it, right? And that's sometimes when people are like, well, I put mulch down, but now I still have weeds. If you use mulch incorrectly, right, you're going to have weeds. But if you use it correctly, then you will suppress a lot of those weeds and stop them from germinating in the first place. So mulch, I usually like to do somewhere between 2 to 4 inches. When you start getting down to 2 inches, that's when you start getting, dandelions and other native weeds that start showing up. So I like to keep it a little thicker. That way those roots can't get, or those seeds can't get started. It's too dark. They can't get access to the soil and they just won't even germinate. Now, that can definitely help you protect your soil and keep the weeds down. Some of the other things that I've seen is that people are piling mulch up next to their house. Probably not the best thing. You can put it next to your house, but maybe putting a rock, a 2 to 4 inch barrier of rocks might be good, so you don't get those critters going into your house, right? Making sure that you keep, if you had to have wood, you treat that wood. If you're going to be using mulch, remember that mulch is a food source for other critters, not just the microorganisms. So they're going to come in there and do their thing, but that's good. We're mimicking what Mother Nature does naturally, which is what we want to do. We just have to be careful of how we use it and when we use it. We already talked about not using enough, right? If you don't use enough, then you're still going to end up with pests. And then the last thing that I think I want to address is that some people have said that if it gets windy, some of that mulch will blow away. That is possible, right? We get pretty windy out here in Vegas, right? And it is possible for the wind to blow some of that mulch away, especially if it's older. The more mature the mulch is, the lighter it is. It has the best ability to blow away. And then if you're using straw, of course, is really light and it can blow away. But here's the thing. It won't blow away if you keep it moist. That's just that. If you keep it moist, then that mulch will actually stay in place. So if you're watering appropriately for your plant, it will actually keep that mulch heavy enough and filled with water so that it doesn't blow away. Plastic, right? That's just you got to pin it down or put dirt over the edges, right, to keep it down. You can use rocks or anything like that. And I think the only thing that I've seen with some of the mulches is if you are growing on the ground, you get a torrential downpour, that water could possibly wash away some of that mulch. It just depends on what it is. I don't have gutters, so if the water hits a certain spot and continues hitting it there over and over again because of the pitch of the roof and where the angles meet, then you're going to end up with a hole, which is not good. But that's kind of what we're left with. But we have to work within the confines that we have, right? So be a better idea if I got gutters and then just put the water away somewhere else, right? But not there. The key thing is that you get the mulch out there, right, and you use it and you apply it correctly. And when you do that, then your plants will have a higher chance of being successful and growing to their full potential. If a healthy soil and a healthy plant is your goal, then a bare soil is definitely the enemy. Mother Nature protects the soil all the time, and if we leave it bare as human beings, then we are going to struggle with different things, because that's all Mother Nature wants to do is just cover that bare soil again, which means that you're going to end up with weed seeds and other things that you don't want to grow there, or nothing growing. So that's it for this week. We'll see y'all next week, and thanks for watching.